Jason, give everyone a bit of an intro as to who you are, what you do, and we'll jump in from there.
All right. So I am a strength and conditioning coach out in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. I used to be a competing powerlifter until I moved over to strength and conditioning. And now currently I mainly focus on teaching athletes how to throw fast and swing fast. So examples that are golf, baseball, maybe javelin in the future. But yeah, throwing fast, swinging fast is my specialty.
That's awesome. Love that. Coming from obviously a powerlifting background to much more of like a athletic development sort of rotation based sports and sort of disciplines like that, you must have had like some massive changes and sort of transfers across your training styles and coaching styles as well. Like, what are some of the biggest keys that you focused on with like power development for your athletes?
Well, a lot of it is uh, basically Olympic weightlifting alternatives. And some people might see me as a anti-Oli lifting coach. I'm not, honestly, but it all depends on like time constraints, right? Why should I spend time on like teaching a clean or a high pull when I can just get you to grab a trap bar and jump with it, right? And then we can make adaptations quickly. I think the biggest challenge was actually learning more so like the force velocity curve, how to coach more ballistic style plyometric movements, the cues to use. But the benefits of coming from powerlifting was actual strength training because I've this is not a this is not a like a shot at any coach out there, but I find there's a lack of actual like detail in progressing strength lifts in strength and conditioning. It's just, hey, just go in, just lift what you think you can lift, and you'll be good. I personally like to program a lot more progression into it, right? Like we look at intensities. Do we need that volume in season or off season, right? I find that can help progress their strength levels a lot more. And I feel like powerlifting and actually diving into strength training has helped. And also like moving from, well, at the time when I first started powerlifting, my main like inspirations was Juggernaut training systems. And eventually moving into my inspiration now, which is, I'm gonna get this name wrong, but Mladen Jovanovic and he's a Serbian strength and conditioning coach. So yeah.
You did well.
Yeah,
No,
hell, I tried. I think I got it right.
I think that's super cool. Like, as a bit of a contrasting approach to like how I find myself sort of programming, how you're saying, touching on the powerlifting background and ensuring that there's a need for progression basically in the strength movements and the big lifts and things like that. Whereas I feel these days, as you were saying, there's a much bigger emphasis on like auto regulation of like a work up to your sort of three for the day and having that very in mind. And I feel that I definitely tend towards more of that approach where like estimated sort of daily like percentages of work rather than a fixed number. Like whether that comes from being more of maybe like a gen pop rather than a powerlifting background, combined with a lot of my athletes that are pretty much like have on season all year round, where like as long as we're trending upward from a zoomed out sort of macro perspective, like if 3 weeks in a row don't really trend upward, I'm not really sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater and like redesigning a whole program or anything. Like touching back to that, like you're doing the best work you can today. Okay, maybe you've been smashed across the last 3 weeks with higher volume in your training at your club sport or something. And trying to keep that in mind has, yeah, been a very big benefit to the like estimated daily percentages sort of like type of work of strength work there. And yeah, I think that's something that definitely the pendulum swings back and forth on, like anything in all elements of life, where something will be very in and it'll be very out, very in. I feel at the moment we're much more towards that like estimated sort of auto regulation work rather than the grittiness of like numbers and knowing what you need to hit and going in going, I will hit this. Obviously, ensuring quality is high, but nonetheless, I think it would benefit a lot of athletes to trend back in that direction as well.
Well, yeah, like I mean, it is good to have a like strict percentage base, and you also have to take into account their daily or weekly readiness levels. That's kind of why like I myself, when I train myself and my athletes, I give them, depending on their skill level, is I give them an everyday max, right? Something you can go in and lift at a high intensity without getting hyped up, right? That's a kind of like a best for your day. And then we'll work backwards from that. Okay, we're going to take off, let's say 10% and give me doubles or triples, depending on how many reps is or the rep scheme is, I will minus the percentage from there. So like I'll have that program within itself, and then I'll give a range too. It might be 15 to 18% of your EDM, right? And that's something that I have used, and that's through the concept of pulling the floor versus pulling the ceiling. Pulling the floor is basically just pulling your or training your base athleticism, you know, and then pushing the ceiling is like forcing like greater adaptations.
Yeah.
To
working with
simply,
what you
right?
can do on like a bad day. Like it's the sort of thing where it's all well and good. Like if you're, say, touching back on powerlifting for a second, like if you're planning a peaking sort of program and the numbers you're using are your best ever training days where you were 10 kilos heavier, you had all your mates around you, you were absolutely crushing some pre-workout, music pumping, like the best possible circumstance on the holy grail of the day, you felt like, is that a realistic number to use for a lot of your calculations? Probably not. Maybe choose something a little bit more grounded, a little bit more realistic that you'll be able to get through a lot of your sessions and like whole block with actually completing every rep, every workout. Like this has gone back about 8 years now, but when I ran a bit of a powerlifting phase back in the day of early gym sort of era, like I used all my calculations as my best ever once hit numbers. And 3-4 weeks into a 6-week program, I wasn't able to finish the sessions because I just get too sapped because it'd be too hard, too heavy, or too much volume. And that ties exactly back into me using probably suboptimal numbers for those calculations and putting myself in this massive fucking hole because I just didn't prepare myself properly. And I used numbers that were too far out of reach. So they're above my ceiling. So I'm not really achieving anything there other than failed reps and maybe some subpar work.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where like a training max can come into play, like minus 5-10%, or even like give yourself a like your percentage of the day will be a range, right? That can help. It's like there's a lot of leeway you can like play with, a lot of gaps you can play with there, and that can account for variability within your training day.
100%, yeah, for sure. Now, moving into a little bit more of the golf sort of realm, I find it really interesting, like from a sport that is very mixed in its approach. Like you've obviously got very old school style golf training where it's you go out to the green and all your training is done there. Nothing else outside the green matters. To a more like blended modern sports science approach where you're actually training your strength capacity, you're training your power output, you're training your rotational ability, and then taking that to the green and being able to express that to your fullest capacity, basically. How do you find the blending of approaches there, as well as sort of maybe getting some clients onto the sports science side that may be a little bit traditional in their approach?
Well, I mean, it's all about mindset at the end of the day, right? It helps that a lot of the pros now on tour are, you see them lifting like, I believe Rory is like trap bar deadlifting 405 right now, 405 pounds. And like the greatest, even Tiger Woods goes to the gym, right? And then that all depends on your approach too, right? There has been golfers that went to the gym like 10 years, 20 years ago, but it was more of a physio approach, right? Just kind of like mitigating injury. But now we see that we can not only mitigate injury through strength training, you need like higher, like faster ballistic, higher velocity movements as well as like jumps, right? Mitigating injury through strength training, improving your outputs through power and like speed training as well, right? Hence like the use of speed sticks nowadays, right? Over speed training. And conversing with the new age golfers, the younger ones, they definitely see the benefits of it. Also due to like Bryson DeChambeau too, because he's like very into the gym scene, especially like the younger golfers now. But on the flip side, you also have guys like believe his name is John Daly, where he's like 4 cigars in on the green, 12 Diet Cokes, and like 0 liters of water.
He's weighing 405. He's not lifting 405.
Oh no, he's not. But like surprisingly, he plays at a high level, right? Like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, and we've talked about this before, where golf is such a high skill sport where, in a way, strength and conditioning doesn't play as big of a role as a lot of people think, especially compared to football, right? It does help with your power outputs. It does help with repetitive strain injuries. But at the end of the day, you have to practice your skill, making sure you're actually hitting the ball correctly on your club, making sure it's going, your accuracy is there, your experience in the game and knowing how to hit certain shots and your approach towards the green kind of thing, right? Is all very important. So
100%.
I mean, it's interesting to see coaches float towards strength and conditioning nowadays, and it's great for me in terms of business, right? And also seeing the benefits of it for the athletes as well.
Yeah, even just being able to help more people that are interested in that sort of approach. Like as you said there, I was going to touch on the difference of like skill sports as like a leveler. So something like golf, something like basketball, tennis, lacrosse to a degree, even where I can be slower, I can be weaker, and I can be have less of a tank endurance wise. But if my skill is just so incredibly good with a club, a stick, shooting a ball, like that can mitigate some of those physical and athletic differences. But like, why would you not explore every sort of cavern you can to improve your performance there? It is a bit of a double-sided debate where like I would feel that more people are probably playing golf than ever, more people are playing lacrosse than ever, basketball, like sport isn't really getting any smaller, it's getting bigger and more eyes are turning to it. Performance is getting everly continued higher. How do you strike that balance between like time on green versus time in gym with a lot of your athletes?
Well, I think first is like coming up with a weekly schedule kind of thing and how much time they are willing to put into the gym. Most of my guys are just 2 days in the gym. That's it, right? And that's each session. The sessions with me is an hour and a half. There's take-home sessions is in 40 minutes to an hour. It's not much. And a lot I've encountered some players that are that tell me it's like, okay, yeah, I will, start the gym when I reach this level in my skill, right? Which is, I mean, from a strength and conditioning perspective, like you can start anytime, I'll be honest. And like as a message for all, like any athlete who is looking into implementing strength and conditioning sometime or another, just do it now. Honestly, if you pick a right coach, they will cater to your practice and playing schedule. And if you have a great coach, they will learn to find what movement, what exercise best bang for your buck, and not expect you to be in the gym 24/7 to make improvements. There are some players that only do once a week. Not ideal, honestly. Twice a week, 2 to 4 times a week is great. And it's all about finding things that are the best bang for your buck, right? You can do 40 minutes of effective gym time 3 times out of the week, and take the rest of your time on the green or at the range or practicing your sport, whatever sport that may be, right? Strength and conditioning should be something that is that enhances your athletic capabilities, right? It shouldn't be taking over, right? As strength and conditioning coaches, we cater to their schedule, and we should be and have to be very versatile, and we roll with the punches, right? Just like if a player has an injury, what can we do in the situation? We got to make the best of a shitty situation. Let's be honest.
100%. Yeah, like a good coach will give you the work that you need to get better, but a great coach will tailor it to be able to fit with your schedule and lifestyle as well. Like I've got some like training clients that are like night shift, and compared to say when they were doing day shift, like their routine is completely all over the place. So we roll with the punches, we make it work as best we can. We try and optimize around like what time do you feel appropriate to like be able to eat this and this meal across your day. Like, okay, cool, let's tweak these a little. Same idea with like trying to balance like a full-time job for a lot of your clients. I'm sure with golfing, with gym, with
Mhm.
lifestyles as well. And it's like that's kind of the art approach I feel of making it all work together and have them feel like they're not burning the candle at both ends essentially, and
Mhm.
being able to get the most out of it. But also the skill of their sport is kind of like the grand leveler at the end, like there is no
Exactly.
way around that. So you need to put that time in on the green or the driving range or the putting range or whatever it may be. Like you need that to
Mhm.
be, that is the sport. Like the gym and training and strength and conditioning is supplementary to that. Like that's not your sport. You're not a powerlifter. So if you're ending up tossing up between the two, like you got to find that nice middle ground. There is no one answer.
Of course, like at the end of the day, like what is the most specific training is your sport, is practice,
100%.
right? Like strength and conditioning coaches improves your output. Yeah, we can blend the lines between sport practice and fill in the gap between sport practice and strength training or weight room sessions. And it does help, but to a certain degree, we're not practice, right? Best
100%.
best specific training you can do is practice.
Your
So
sport is your
athletes out
sport.
there, like practice your damn sport.
Turn up
That's
to
the only thing
training.
I can
Turn
say.
up to training
Yeah,
day in, day out.
show up to training day in, day out. And like, I understand that a lot of people have full-time jobs when they're amateur athletes. Show up to training, go to your job, and talk to your strength and conditioning coach to see how they can better incorporate their training schedule into it.
For sure. Like I think that open line of communication there and just honesty at the end of the day, like I would rather a client, an athlete tell me that, hey, I've had a bad week this week. Like I've gotten one
Mm,
of the three sessions we were meant to win. Like and keep me in the loop there rather than just either filling in some numbers that they didn't actually do or just leaving it blank and being like, yeah, I did it, but no numbers or
mm,
no feedback there. Like I get you're human at the end of the day. Like I don't expect perfection. I expect like honesty and
yeah,
effort. And that's pretty much all you really can control. Like you're not going to have the perfect week every week. You're not going to be there for every session doing exactly what I put in
exactly.
every time. But like my sort of calculations work way better when you have that open line with me and I can achieve your goal with you.
Mm, for sure.
All right. So with golf and the amount of like rotation being one-sided, like not, I feel that not many golfers play both sides, if at
Yeah,
all ever. And
definitely not.
exactly, a lot of like back injuries I feel are quite common. A lot of sort of like
Yeah.
golfer's elbow and the like. How do you sort of avoid those niggles with your athlete?
Well, first is tracking volume, right? A suggestion any golfer can use is tracking the amount of swings you take in practice. Doesn't have to be exact to the tee, but keep track of it, right? Another thing might that would help is training kind of like isometric core work in the weight room, as well as like what I like to do is actually put in some rotational work, but more so in a robustness sense, right?
Mm,
You're still getting you're like training your strength does help with this kind of repetitive strain injuries, and also if your strength and conditioning coach is telling you to do like a bunch of like let's say med ball rotational tosses, I'm talking like 10-20 reps per set and
mm,
like 5 sets or more,
yeah,
that's a bit too much, right? You can build to that capacity for sure and be completely okay and not have sustain any injuries, but it's all about tracking, right? Management of volume and intensity is very important.
100%.
So I think that's the bottom line there for training golfers and like making sure that they aren't doing so much rotation as well, right? Like
Mm.
training your obliques, your core, lower back strength, uh, uh, compound lift strengths does help with stability demands and like prevent like mitigation of injuries.
Mm. I think it's a bit of an interesting spectrum. Like you imagine sort of out on this side, there's the minimal effective dose, like how little can I
Mm-hmm,
give to keep everything working right? And then on this
mm-hmm,
end, you've got the complete opposite, which is I'm trying to make these tissues as resilient, as robust, and as dense as I can be
mm-hmm,
by giving maximum amounts of work and like finding that sort of sweet spot between those 2 points. Because obviously Like you want your athletes to improve their rotational outputs. You want them to become
Yeah,
stronger and be able to put out more power in that pattern. But at the same time, if that's putting those tissues that are already a little bit susceptible through that actual movement pattern, you're just loading them and loading them and loading them. And then you're going to the range and you're loading them and loading them and loading them. Like, again, as you were touching on, volume is such a big key factor there. And I feel that almost taking into account a little bit of like variability between athletes, like what I handle well in my body, movement wise and sort of tissue wise, might be completely different to you. Like, I might be all right to go to the
sure.
range and hit 150 balls every other day, but that might seize up your back. But then if I go to the gym, maybe doing, say, a bent over row or something like that, might just not feel very good with my lumbar, but might be amazing for you. And it's like that catering to the individuality sort of between people there is
Yeah.
one of the biggest things I've found for rotational sports to keep those clients healthy. And then blending that into the broad approach I was talking about before with the strength, where it's an estimated daily amount. Like, I'm not necessarily tracking this right now, but I want max intent. I want you to try and break this. So I'm giving you a target, but it's a qualitative target,
Yeah.
not a quantitative target.
Yeah, for sure. Like going back to the point about like tracking your volume in practice, right? A great example was this happened to one of my throwers recently. He just came back into training, and a couple weeks later, he blew out his elbow throwing.
Mm.
And the reason is that sudden uptake in
Mm.
practice where they were just practicing a lot of high intensive drills where you got to throw fast, and that was just all it took, right?
Yeah.
And it's like for everyone out there, it's just keeping track and like slowly building up intensity so your body can tolerate this kind of like load and like velocity is super important. Because if you don't, you're going to you can possibly end up injured,
Load
right?
spikes are
Or
much
tweak something.
worse than,
It's so bad.
yeah. I find them to be much more like detrimental, whether it be just from a performance sort of standpoint or like
Mm-hmm.
a performance and readiness standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
or an injury sort of prevention standpoint. Like, spikes and also decreases in load. Like, everyone obviously focuses so much on the spikes, like, oh, I've added 10 to 15% or something like that. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
a good, safe, conservative amount. But if I've dropped
Mm-hmm.
50%, like, that's going to do more harm than you may feel. Like, just because I'm not stressing my body, the
Mm-hmm.
reduction of stress is still a big change, because then you imagine it has to peak back up at some point. And if I go back to what I was doing previously, I've cut 50%, but then I've also jumped 50%. And that's a lot more
Yeah.
taxing than people realize.
And like a common thing I see a lot of people do is like when they get injured, they, go do their treatments, whatever, and they come back and they think they can just jump right back into it. You got to take a conservative approach for a lot of people out there who happen to consistently get injured, right? There might be, the problem might actually be you're jumping in and doing too much too fast. Don't get me wrong, you will build up back that workload, but if you're constantly jumping back and expecting you to be at 100% because you feel better is a common mistake a lot of people like do, and that ends up in them becoming more injured and going through that vicious cycle all over again.
And it's very, very easy to get trapped in that cycle, I tell you.
It is like patience is key here.
100%. So, Jace, I want you to give people at home 3 health/isometric drills that focus on a golfing sort of standpoint of performance that they can perform at home or at the gym to maximize their health and performance.
All right, a couple of my favorites. Well, here's the thing. It depends on if you are if you're doing jumping or not in your training. Because if you are, I love a split stance ISO and a dead hang. Those are my favorites. Grip training as well as for your knee. Because like, do you remember Tiger Woods when he injured himself? He tore his ACL,
You think
right?
about the amount of torque going through that drive and that body.
Exactly.
Like, you got to have that prep for that load.
Exactly. And then grip strength for wrist and elbow, right? Those are my 2 favorite ones. And isometric drill, I think if you have access to weights, a weighted plank is my favorite for that lower back, those
Love that.
obliques. Yeah. those are some things that are consistently seen in my programming. And well, my golfers haven't tried their dead hangs yet. They will next block though. So if they're listening or if they hear this, just be aware. That's like next week, actually.
I think it's a much harder thing than most people imagine a dead hang to be. Like, especially looking at it through the lens of like, oh, when I was a kid, I played on the monkey bars all the time. Like, I'm an adult now, I'm stronger, I can hang for way longer. But you get most people on the bar, and honestly, I would say anything over 2 to 3 minutes is generally getting to the impressive level. Like, I saw that Rogue actually did a dead hang challenge. I think this would have been about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And the 5th through 2nd place was all in the sort of 7, 8, 9 minute mark. And the guy that came second got like a 950 something. The guy that came first had a 60-minute dead hang.
Oh my God.
And that's like the point of just being absurdly ridiculous, but it almost...
That's filthy.
It's ridiculous. And like they put up a video of it, and I was watching it to try and like essentially see how he did it. Because at that point, like when you've almost 7 times the 2nd place, like something's different. And what he was actually doing, he had such a capacity to hang there that he would alternate arms. So he'd hang from his right while his left was resting, and just fully lean into that side, like hang off that side, rest on that side, and then alternate, and then go to 2 for a bit, and then alternate. And it's almost the principle of like letting one side regenerate and recover there, and being able to manipulate his body weight back and forth. But like you have to have that high of a capacity to do that. And I found that, touching back onto your isometric split stance sort of lunge there, like the same thing can be done with that. Like I think my best with a unweighted lunge was something like 8 minutes, 15 seconds or something like that. And pretty much going, but the same principle of like, okay, I'm really leaning into my front leg here, like trying to give my back leg a bit of a rest while I load the front, and then shift myself a tiny bit back. And like, if you were watching me do the movement, it'd be very, very slight shifts. But it's the intention of where I'm putting my body weight and like using it as a grounding sport, like a grounding spot, basically. And that only really comes, I find, with like kinesthetic awareness of being able to manipulate my body weight and pressure, and that comes through training and learning and performing those movements and just getting better at the actual execution of that, alongside all of the health benefits and all of the sort of performance orientated ideas that we're generating from them.
But like my question to that is, if you're consistently shifting weight, what are the physiological like adaptations? Like, is it not as great as if I were just to do 1 minute with my full weight on that one leg?
True. Very good point. Like I would say with that sort of like, I guess, level of intensity, I would say it's almost more for the competition element, like the mental of like how much discomfort can I take, knowing that like isometrics are one of I feel the safest forms of loading a movement like that, where like obviously with keeping sensibility in mind, like I'm not doing a wall sit with 400 kilos on my knees and then I go, okay, cool, like it feels great while I'm doing it, then I collapse and I've got 400 kilos on me. Like I can push that as hard as I possibly want, knowing that nothing's really changing length, and like the intensity is much more from like the actual like the muscle burn itself rather than any shortening or lengthening of muscle. So I would say more from the competition standpoint and like testing my limits. If like other times I've done like loaded ones where I'm very conscious about my position and it's more of like an intrinsic sort of thing I'm going for, where I'm trying to load this specific joint angle as much as I can and not deviate, not let myself budge in the slightest, like no yielding essentially. And I think I think with those, like the same sort of split squats, getting up to like 100 kilo, 110 kilo split squat and just seeing like how long I can hold that for without yielding is much more of like a quantitative sort of approach there. But that's where I'd be focused on getting those tendon health gains and like the actual strength to not yield in that position, and then transferring that to say your jumping approach there, where I've gotten really strong in this like bottomed out position, that everything above there is a much more like grounded reactive ability to move through that range.
That's kind of reminds me of I don't know if you remember, I think a year ago, people were talking about mental toughness and how some skills coach use drills and intensive drills as mental toughness with no like transfer to sport, right? Or physiological adaptations, and like that can result in people getting injured. I mean,
100%.
like people should listen up and maybe use these extreme isometrics as almost like a mental toughness thing. If like by the off chance you actually need it, right? This like almost a safer option.
I think
like the
it's the sort
safest
of thing
option.
I find like in my inclusion of them for both like Gen Pop and a lot of my athletes, like it's almost like I feel mental toughness obviously is such a buzzword, but that's the side effect. That's not the aim. The aim I find is just competing. Like training a lot of Gen Pop folk, like they don't get to compete very often in general life, but that doesn't take away their want and their drive to compete. So like if I say, okay, cool, like last time we did a wall sit, you got 3 minutes at your top end. Like let's aim for 310 today. Like you know the number you want to hit. You know that it's you against the score you got like a month ago. Let's go for it. And like it kind of removes a lot of the barriers I find to, oh, like, am I going to hurt myself? Like, I don't know if I can do this. Like a lot of that self-talk is removed because like they're competing against their own score. They know that. And then when I have a leaderboard in my gym that has like a few different movements and like top scores and stuff like that. And it's a lot more isometric, a lot more like body weight sort of stuff, so that it's a relatively open playing field. And it's really cool to see like there's not that much of a disparity between males and females for a lot of drills. And in some, like females, like a lot of the lower body stuff, whether that be wall sits or lunges that I've done for sort of max time, females have gotten the best 1, 2, and 3 scores for both of those. And definitely do better relative like body weight wise to what they can achieve time wise. And like at the moment, I've got a grip challenge where basically 30 kilos in each hand for males, 20 kilos in each hand for females. And the scores are almost dead across, like time-wise. So, like, keeping that in mind, that's basically scaled to body weight rather than it is to like a gender or a sex there. Like, comparable times, comparable scores. Like, everyone wants to compete. Like, it's not just oh, these are the blokes, they want to go and compete over there, and then the females want to get toned over here. Like, the same approach works for everyone, but it's just fitting to that individual and tailoring it to them.
It's just a matter of finding triggers, right? Like the way you say something, or picking on a subject that they are very passionate about, right? Like finding that trigger can drive performance for sure. Some people, I'm not sure about you, but I really get triggered when someone says, when like, hey, this person is getting this. Why aren't you getting this? And like, I'm a very competitive person, and like that will trigger some sort of like
competition rate,
like motivation. Exactly, right? So that's very interesting to see.
Definitely the skill of coaching is like knowing, like if someone like a client doesn't really enjoy competing but enjoys the process, the chase of like getting to their goals, like really doubling down on that element of it. Or if someone does nothing but wants to compete, like every session is you're competing, like whether the actual work is something that relates to competing or not, like if you can frame it in a way to their perspective that it is, like you're going to get buy-in, you're going to get effort, you're going to get hustle, like all those things that are what you want essentially as a coach. Like knowing how to like pick and prod at that person is undeniably an underrated skill.
For sure.
All right. What are some of the main prime movements in terms of activation, preparing an athlete for a golfing day, or like if I'm coming into the gym to do a quick sort of shorter session with you, and we've got time to do 3 to 5 movements to prepare me to then go out onto the green or to play a round of 9 or 18 holes or something like that, what are the main preparation movements you'd use to have me go and perform afterwards?
In terms of something loaded or something more so as a warm-up?
Go a little bit of both. Go 2 or 3 of each.
So let's say I'm in a setting where they have a pre-round training session. So let's say I would just work on kind of higher intensity compound movements, keep things short and sweet, reps low, intensity high, get a specific jump or ballistic in. So my favorite might be hands on the hip counter movement jump, unweighted, and then maybe a very light 6 to 5 or 4 pound shot put throw, right? I've been implementing something with the golfers that for their ballistics. So some golfers tend to use a very fast upswing using the counter movement to generate force. Some like to pause for a split second up at the top, right? So I've been using that and putting that into their ballistic movement to almost specify to their swings, right? And then maybe something that will, at the end, maybe a robustness or something that will keep their joints healthy if they have a specific problem, for example, and then get them on the green. So I actually just posted an example of a pre-round golf warm-up on my Instagram that I've given the full thing to my golfers who are competing. And it takes like 5 minutes to finish. And honestly, if you can't get to a competition with 5 minutes to spare, that might be something that's
a warning sign. So, a red flag.
Yeah, that's a red flag in terms of the time management, right? So 100%. What it consists of is basically very simple warm-ups like thoracic openers. And this can all be done without a mat, just standing up. Thoracic openers, hamstring warm-up, hamstring and glutes, shoulder warm-up, and then a simple jump, and then maybe a banded exercise, a banded Pallof press, and a banded rotation if you have someone to hold the band on the other side, or you can put it up against or tie it up against a pole, just going by that ramp protocol.
Yeah, right? That sounds awesome. Like you're touching on pretty much all elements, like different ends of like the sort of force velocity curve in terms of the early movements you mentioned, like prep gym wise, and getting them like in touch with their body with some jumping, some more like ballistic style sort of movements, and then also obviously more of like a mobility, like flexibility is probably not the right term, but that same sort of coin of like moving and getting their range accessible as well as feeling good before they go out and then start trying to unleash bombs through it. Like that's pretty all inclusive in my opinion.
Yeah, and like for sure this warm-up will evolve throughout time, just because I gotta see what the client's capable of. Do they like the warm-up? Can they perform it? Is it time efficient? I think the most important thing is like, is it time efficient? Right? You technically can just go to the range and start launching bombs, but in the long run, like, is it able to potentiate your performance? Because at the end of the day, we're all, especially for athletes, we all talk about results, right? How was your performance during the game? How was your performance during the tournament kind of thing? And of course, like, how do you feel? Right. So that's something I'll ask them after they try the warm up a couple times at the range. Like, how do you feel? Do you feel limber? Do you feel strong? Do you feel powerful?
100%. It's the sort of thing like it definitely gets overlooked, like obviously in terms of sporting skill, but every single swing you take is patterning that into your nervous system. So like at the same time, you're refining. I like to give the analogy of like a path you're walking along. And as you're just starting, your variation is huge. So it's a very wide path. And as you do more and more reps, like you're becoming more consistent, but you're also narrowing that path. So you're getting this smaller bandwidth that you operate in, which is both good and bad. Like obviously you're removing incredible inconsistencies in your technique, but you're also training your nervous system to operate at at your max speed is your max speed, but then you might get stronger later on, but not really have the same success as transferring that into your swing because your nervous system has essentially learned to be capped. And like, this kind of goes back to like the sprinting track model of like overspeed training where I'm getting assisted to move further. So I'm training my nervous system to be okay with, cool, like this is faster than I can actually run, but I don't need to freak out. I don't need to panic. I don't need to bail out of it. And I feel it's a very similar approach to the driving range. Like I have a friend that is very into his golf and he loves getting to the driving range at 6:30 when they shut at 7, trying to get some last balls and quickly hit 50 balls in 30 minutes. Whereas I go a lot earlier, get my balls nice and early, and then take my time hitting them. Be intentful, take your time. Like I might get through 50 balls in an hour or an hour and a bit, but each one has intent. Like I'm taking my time. I'm not just rapid firing, hitting them. And like, you imagine what that's doing to your nervous system at the same time where rushing through them, missing key points of execution versus maybe half as many swings, but deliberately focused, like trying to get the most out of each. And I'm probably getting a lot more bang for my buck despite doing less work there.
it's very important for like practice in any sport is to go, especially if you're practicing by yourself, go in with a plan. Don't just go in, hey, I'm just going to hit some balls, hope for the best. Go in with a plan. Maybe I'll practice with my irons. That's the focus of today. Like, I'm not saying you can't, you're exclusively choosing a pair, like some clubs, and saying this is all I'm doing.
Yeah.
You can still hit the driver, you can still hit bombs, yeah, for sure. But you should have a clear goal going, like a specific goal going into each practice session. Hey, am I practicing my short game today? Am I practicing like where I'm hitting the ball, my accuracy, right? Have a clear goal, and that can do wonders.
100%. If you're treating your main primary sports skill work with less structure than you're treating your supplementary strength conditioning, like you're not really treating it seriously. You're coming at it from just this, oh, like I'm gonna go, like you wouldn't just roll up to the gym and go, oh, what do I feel like today? Cool, I'm gonna do a bit of that machine, bit of this one, bit of that, bit of this. That's essentially what you're doing if you get to the driving range and you're just hitting some bombs every time and doing nothing but that, or all you do is putt and do nothing other than that. And it's taking it from a smarter approach of like, where do I want to be? Where am I now? What do I need to join those two spots? Like it doesn't happen by accident. Like it's conscious, focused, dedicated work to get between those two.
Yeah, for sure. So like for any athletes out there, I think you have to communicate with both your coaches. Ask them what I can improve on if I'm doing this on my own. What kind of structure they might suggest. And just like ask them for a game plan. That's their job, literally. Like communication is such a like necessity. For a lot of people, necessity, right? So make sure you talk to your coach, get that communication in, ask them what you can do, because that's the best thing. And that's the best thing that any coach can hear from a dedicated athlete. Like we 100%. Love hearing that.
100%. That's what we thrive on. All right. I want a hot take from you. Can be experimental training method. It can be a different sort of procedure or a system you've put in place recently. Can anything. Hot take. Go.
Oh, man. Okay. So this has evolved from the last time we talked, same time last year. I did say way back in the day or a year ago that you shouldn't load sport-specific movements. I still stand by that, but I think I have a lot more give on that nowadays. You can blend some drills into the gym. And I think that's and you can load some movements. You just got to do it smart. Like don't load the like full on movement. Like don't pick up a shoulder rock that is like 40 pounds and swing it.
You're not doing a golf swing with a barbell.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think there's a lot of takeaways we can use with more experimental methods of blending some type of drill with weight room stuff. For example, I actually took this from Powering Through, and I might implement it sometime sooner or later, is to get a speed stick and use it in a contrast set. Like
explain what a speed stick is for those at home that aren't aware.
So a speed stick is lighter than your normal driver by like 10% or 20%, and it allows you to achieve higher speeds than you usually can. Now this kind of effect doesn't usually stick for the long term, but it can be dosed. You have to dose it effectively throughout your training plan for the speed to quote unquote stick, right?
Very similar to what I was talking on with the sprinting in terms of like
exactly
getting your nervous system used to different speeds, different velocities, different operating levels.
Like even for some let's say rugby or lacrosse, you want to be fast when you run, right? You can dose it in like minimal doses in your warm-up. So you do your general prep work, slowly build up intensity, and maybe do 2 sets of 10-meter flies. You've got that speed stimulus enough to like kind of tell your body to like, hey, we kind of need this adaptation. Keep the speed and dose it effectively at minimal doses, so you're not injuring your athletes or overtraining them, right? So going back to the speed stick thing, like using the speed stick in a weight room environment can be helpful. Like use it in contrast set where I pull a heavy single or heavy double, triple, whatever it is on a trap, or I squat it and then rest anywhere from a minute to 5 minutes. and then have a swing speed radar in front of you when you swing, and make sure the velocity drop off isn't more than 3%, or once it reaches the velocity drop off of like 3 to 5%, back off, right?
I think it's
So
quite
like
interesting there, like the analysis of the metric, like you're making sure that that is measured. Like you were trying to get a qualitative or quantitative result there
Mhm.
to ensure that like fatigue and these parameters are being met, which I feel is so underpinning to that whole like complex.
Yeah, like I think if you can relate it to lacrosse, you have a pocket radar. You can dose like max speed. You can tell them, hey, I already know what your average speed is. I want you to like swing or throw, or what's the official term for
Shoot,
lacrosse?
swing,
Shoot, right?
throw or shoot, probably the main ones.
Okay, so like I want you to shoot the ball as fast as you can, and then once we hit a small drop off, we call it, right? So now we don't have too much of a fatigue buildup, and then we can keep that kind of higher end speed quality within the athlete.
I think it's
and like having measurements.
100%.
Sorry, I'm just saying like how having measurements is important, but it shouldn't dictate all of your training.
Yeah, it's an important factor, but it's not the be all end all. Like it's information like anything else. But you have to know how to interpret, analyze, and basically digest it. Like I think it's quite interesting coming up from a lacrosse perspective there, where the max velocity I shoot is very rarely seen in game for both sort of a number of reasons, like the amount of time I have to actually perform a max intensity shot, as well as the sort of the run up and that needed. Like you imagine, it's almost like comparing a Happy Gilmore swing to like a conventional drive. Like the same idea though of having that time and room and run up that is rarely achieved. So it's almost, I generally use, if I'm to do something like that, almost just a stationary shot where it takes that out of it. So like we're still using a run up in most of our shots that we're taking in a game, but how well and how much force and torque you can swing from a standstill is a great leveler between those 2 points of like max speed. I would put in more as almost a bit of fun to see like top end, are you improving at the absolute best conditions of all? But what's more realistic that what you actually perform in the game is down here. So finding that nice approach and sort of having both elements be touched on is quite an interesting balance there with a lot of cross sort of work there.
Yeah. I mean, like at the end of the day, like you said, measurements are measurements and the like numbers are numbers. It just depends on how you use it, right? And the constraints you put against it.
100%. And I think coaches can definitely get a little bit too number focused at times. And like touching back what you're saying before in terms of like general preparation, like performance, as well as like sport specific sort of training, and like finding that nuances back and forth. And in a sport like golf, where it's so heavily skill influence, like you getting a client to feel a certain position that they're lacking, maybe say like someone's very limited on their wind up and doesn't have great thoracic rotation, but doesn't have an actual limitation there. They're just not very maybe in control of the position or able to access it in a golf setting. Like loading a sport specific sort of movement in a gym setting there. Maybe you've got like a band pulling them into that range and they're trying to like mimic that angle. That might be just as beneficial as improving on their bench press or something like that, where it's not a direct correlation, but them being at that position and angle is something that feels good and opens them up, and like it changes how they view the movement more so than just the outputs there. And I think like a great way to see yourself evolving as a coach is to be able to have that line be shifted back and forth and like blur where you find yourself, you know, like if you can look at a Joel Seedman exercise and take something from it, you know, you've either gotten better as a coach or you've gotten worse.
I don't know. I have a bone to pick with him personally, but anyways, but it's like, have you ever seen, I forgot what his name was. It's an old training footage. Was it Gunther? I think he was a like shot putter, right?
Gunther or something like that.
Yeah, wasn't he a shot putter?
Yeah, like Soviet era field athlete.
Yeah, so he had a like SDE exercise where they tied a heavier ball up to the ceiling, and he basically shot put it out and let the eccentric force bring it back in, and he kept doing that. And like I love that. And also seeing, because I follow some combat sports coaches, right? And they've also posted like Soviet era like training, and it's like it mimics the movement too, but not to the degree where it's like, oh, I am tying or I'm putting ankle weights on and like just fighting with it, right? To a certain extent, but it makes sense. So there's such a small line between helpful and complete BS.
I think it's very much like dependent on what the coach is aiming to get out of it. Like if I do something that looks absolutely ridiculous to someone else, but they ask me, okay, why are you doing it? And I'm able to say, we're aiming for this, this, and that. And like, this is my justification for why we're aiming for these and how that this method translates to this aim and how that will end up with these results. Like, cool. Like I'm happy to be proven wrong with something like that. If I see something stupid and someone's able to back it up, but it's when, someone's loading, like say a Muay Thai fighter's ankles with weights because they'll kick faster. And it's like, is that, that's the end outcome you want, but how are you getting there? Like, is there really a bridge between these two spots? Yes, no, maybe like,
because I've also seen like people load with a band, but then here's the thing that makes sense is it's just a one-dimensional kick. It's not, oh, you got to do all these kicks. It's like one-dimensional. It's just for this specifically. And I think that works so well personally. And like they're only loading one movement pattern or one rotation or whatever it is in the sport, and they're getting them to perform it in a skill setting too. And I think that's amazing. I think that is the definition of bridging the gap between weight room and skill sessions.
For sure. I think it's the sort of thing that you definitely bring in with more sort of intermediate to advanced athletes that already have like the pattern down and have already narrowed that path in, so that then at this point we're trying to almost expand that path a little and improve the ceiling of the movement that we can perform, like improve how fast we can deliver the kick, improve the force that it's landing with. And exactly that, like it becomes almost even more specific where, okay, like I'm setting myself with a certain position. I'm then taking that kick and then resetting my position, doing the kick, resetting. So that in that setting, like that band applies that tension to the exact degree that we want. And we're like, it's like the old quote, like, I don't fear a man that's practiced 10,000 kicks, but one that's practiced one kick 10,000 times. Like the difference in the execution there is going to be monstrous.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think that blending skills practice and weight room sessions, a lot of people think it's the whole workout. It's only probably 10%. You're still getting your meat and potatoes of strength training, ballistic plyometrics in, right? Because people see that in social media and think that's everything. Like we gravitate towards shiny things, and that is exactly what it is. But keep in mind, what is the years of training they've put in, the amount of time they put into like the key lifts or their key performance indicators, right, off their sport. And like the amount of like skills training they had to do.
You chase the 85% of gains before you get into the 15% of the sport specific stuff like that.
Exactly. And like, I think one great thing about like any like throwing sports too, that is, I wouldn't really call it experimental, but more so over speed and underspeed, is just having a ball that's several grams lighter or heavier and getting them to throw it. Obviously, this has to be done in a controlled situation and should be very well monitored. But guys who do that already have some sort of foundational training in, right? So for people out there, it is very important to get your meat and potatoes of training in too.
For sure. Like even from a movement sort of variability standpoint you're touching on there, like often you see the kids that play like 5 different sports. And I feel it's a bit of a combination of the fact that they're playing 5 different sports, so they're getting better at 5 different sets of movement patterns. But also, are they playing 5 sports because they're good at 5 sports? So it's kind of like almost a chicken and egg situation, but that's very rarely going to harm like a younger athlete to expose themselves to different things, to perform different movement patterns, and just have this very wide range of stimulus be input into the nervous system. Like that's always a good thing. Like very rarely will that be a negative later down the line if they want to try and take their performance in one specific sport or discipline to a higher degree.
like general training approach is very good for a lot of athletes, but it's only good until it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Until you
to a
need some
point
sort
and
of
then you
different.
plateau.
Exactly. And then now you have to look at a different approach, right? And that's with training too. Once you hit a plateau, you gotta look at a different approach. Maybe I need more volume. Maybe I need to spend some more time in higher intensities, for example. Maybe it's my rep set scheme, or is it my preparation in terms of recovery,
100%.
right? You need a good blend of specific and generalistic approach, because like in the past, a lot of strength and conditioning coaches, stay in their lane. And now we have a lot more people that are kind of blending the two approaches of practice and weight training. And I think that's so good, because now we're learning to bridge the gap and produce better athletes.
100%. I mean, it's a good thing that coaches like should aim to stretch themselves towards, but also like almost be mindful of like your current abilities, I guess. Like, I'm not trying to be too ambitious and aim for someone to, I'm not trying to program for someone to do a marathon, peak for a powerlifting program, compete in international high level sport all at the same time. Like, that's not necessarily like a coaching dilemma. That's just a logistics dilemma. Like, you're not able to peak that high in so many different elements at once. But to achieve a local representative level of high performance and also be able to be a monster in the weight room and also have all these other sort of elements going at once, like, it's very doable.
Just keep in mind that you only have one goal, right? Which is to get better at your sport. Everything plays a part in your process, in your journey.
Love it. All right, Jace. I would like you to give everyone at home one piece of wisdom, knowledge, can be a quote, can be a bit of insight or something to help them improve their performance, whether that be on the green, in the gym, or just in their general life.
I think a cognitive approach is what I'm going to go with, because this is something I'm currently working on, making a cognitive strategy, cheat sheet, if you will, for competing athletes who find themselves in very stressful competition environments. So I don't know who this quote is from, but it's from some Navy SEAL. It says, under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. So that goes with physical preparation as well as mental, right? A lot of people tend to have stage fright and or crumble under pressure. And a good cognitive strategy, and this is very simplified, so if you want to look into it, you should, for athletes out there that are listening, is to, on your free time, like a couple weeks before your competition, every other day or every third day, put yourself, meditate, think, and visualize. Don't actually do the training, but visualize yourself playing your competition and put yourself in actually stressful situations where things aren't going your way, and how you can mentally breathe, or how you can mentally deal with these situations. What can you do? What will your approach be? Because when it comes to the actual situation, you'll be more comfortable with it, right? Because you've mentally put yourself into those situations. And everyone needs to put themselves into high pressure situations to prep for when it actually becomes a problem in competition, because that way you'll be more comfortable. You'll know what you can do because you've already strategized, and you can have kind of what we call like stress, right? It's not going to give you anxiety and choke because you've prepared for it.
100%. The brain doesn't know the difference between what you've imagined and visualized time and time again versus what you've experienced. So filling it with those good perceptions, good examples of like how things can go right on game day, and just running through the checklist of execution, like you're essentially preparing for the game day by doing the game day. And it's the sort of thing, I think, until someone's had the experience of that happening, they can't really sort of see how it would have that much effect. But it is a genuine real deal. And I would implore everyone that's listening to this to look into visualization if you've never performed it before, as it is definitely a great way to add some extra training in if you've got the schedule time for it, that doesn't add any physical load, but can be very, very helpful.
And one more thing that I found that helps is kind of like I tell my athletes to do this if they like recovery breathing. And you can do this in game too when you have a break or when you have some time for yourself, like 3 seconds in through the nose, hold it for 3 seconds, 3 seconds exhale, hold it for 3 seconds. Continue doing that. Your heart rate will go down. You might have a clearer mind. You might feel more relaxed because when you're tense, you can't do anything about a stressful situation. But when you're a bit more relaxed, you can act accordingly.
Yeah, 100%. Like box breathing is awesome for relaxation.
Mm-hmm. But also for the people that are listening out there, we are not psychologists or counselors. This is a strategy you can use at your own risk.
Of course.
If you need actual help in terms of your mental game, please find a counselor or a psychologist.
If you choke your
just putting that out there,
don't blame us.
Don't blame us. Like this is not under our job description.
Of course. Jace, appreciate you having you on. Very much, a good amount of wisdom delivered to everyone that's listening, as well as some insights into training. Let everyone know where they can find you, as well as what you have in the works at the moment. I know you've got a few exciting programs coming.
Well, first off, you can find me on Instagram at Performance Purpose. Website is performancepurpose.ca. For people who are in Vancouver or Richmond or any of the lower mainland, I am training out of Orenda Performance, running my client sessions there in Richmond is close to Vancouver. Or for people who want to get some online or remote coaching in, I do run a one-on-one remote coaching, and you can just apply on my website for if you want to swing fast or throw fast. I have articles coming up, as well as an article about cognitive strategies for high performance athletes. What else do I have coming up? I'm looking to start a baseball team strength and conditioning for in-season and off-season. This is a subscription-based service. And lastly, if this comes out before I go to New York, I would love to connect with any coaches out there.
Love it. Sounds amazing. Yeah, definitely check out Jace, guys. He's a wealth of knowledge and performance, both in gym and on the green as well. And there'll be something for everyone to take nugget of knowledge wise.
Thanks for having me on.
Have a good one.
You too.